Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining today. The title of our webinar is 5 Best Practices for Expanding User Access Reviews Across Your Application Landscape. We'll introduce our speakers in just a moment, but first I'd like to go over a few housekeeping slides. If you have any audio issues during this webinar, click on Preferences and then Audio. From there, you can check to see if you are using the appropriate audio device. You can also click on the play sound to check if you can hear the sound coming through your speakers. There will be a Q&A session following this presentation. So please type any questions into the Q&A chat box for our speakers to answer at the end of the event. To prevent background noise, everyone is on mute. And with that, we'll go into our speakers. My name is Stephanie Anderson. I'm the Global Webinar Manager here at PathLock. And today our speakers will be Jasmine Chenikara-Varghese. She's a Principal Product Manager at PathLock, and Ryan Quinones, Senior Product Manager at PathLock. And I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Jasmine Chenikara-Varghese. I'm part of the PathLock Product Management team, covering mainly the user access review and the access governance solutions.
Thanks, Jasmine. Ryan Quinones here, Senior Product Marketing Manager here at PathLock. I've been in about the ERP space for about 8 years now. I'm covering the entire access governance side of the platform, and I'm very happy to be here today with everybody. Thank you for joining. All right, so to get started, we got to do the obligatory, about us from a 10,000-foot view. And so if you're not familiar, we are PathLock, and what we like to say is we're the market leader in application security and controls automation. Now, application security, maybe that's a little apparent. Controls automation, what is that? I mean, it's really about leveraging technology to deliver more efficiency, more effectiveness in your everyday processes. And I think access certifications or user access reviews certainly will fall in that category. So we'll explore a little bit more about UARS and how we help organizations bring automation to that process. But from a high level, what PathLock is doing is automating these controls and helping out with application security across your application stack. We deal with a lot of high-level partners and high-level customers from the Fortune 500 all the way down to the 2000 level. Everything from global enterprises to even your SMBs down there, predominantly in the ERP space and those critical business applications. And that kind of lends to the next point is one of the things we pride ourselves on, I think is a strong competitive differentiator, is the broad app for support that we integrate with in your business applications. And being able to do this across both native and cloud-based applications. So, we've experienced a lot of growth, tremendous success over the years, and, we are at over 500 employees and 1,300 customers worldwide. And, from my perspective, it's been an exciting journey to see the product continue to innovate and help deliver value to our customers. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. So again, today we want to talk about user access reviews, what the processes typically look like, how some folks are approaching it, and really the vision we see the market going forward in terms of moving towards a cross-application approach. With that said, we're going to dive into 5 best practices that you guys can take a look at and follow if it fits your organization, makes sense there, to help you get to a future state of cross-application user access reviews. So just to kind of level set, a periodic access review, what's it all about? Why is it a requirement here? What's common process behind everything? So it's really, at the end of the day, it's about ensuring that the appropriate access is granted to your business applications. Many of us are familiar with principle of least privilege. I think that's very relevant here. We want to make sure that there's no excessive access, that your users have what they need, not anything more, because that will add risk to your application environment. Now, one of the challenges is that organizations have very dynamic user base, and the life cycle is constantly on the change. Depending on your line of business or your organization itself, you might have a more high turnover employees, or you might have more static base of users. But we see this change, and all this commotion can create complications when you're trying to ensure more or less least privilege. So, the goal is to lessen this risk. Now, in addition to that, on a compliance perspective, many compliance mandates have this requirement that access is reviewed on a periodic basis here, SOX and many other regulations. Now, this should be performed on a regular basis. Oftentimes, it's annually. Ideally, it could be more. And since we've got multiple applications in here, it can be a challenge to be able to automate this stuff in the first place, and then secondly, bring it all together. So a manual process is quite common, especially in today's age, even as folks are looking towards the next level of their applications, maybe considering a migration down the road. Manual processes are still quite common. Go to the next. And that's fine. I think a lot of organizations have a more or less process in place for a manual access review. I mean, everything from starting out the project, planning your timeline, determining who's involved, kind of your more generic project management activities here. But then you're getting into having to pull this data, having to organize it in a spreadsheet, coordinate with all of the stakeholders in here, everybody from the IT, from audit, from the business who has to review this stuff. And it can get complex quite quickly. And without a clear process or even a solution to help manage all of this stuff, it gets messy. It gives a lot of people headaches. I'm not going to run through all of these, but as you can see, I mean, this is a complex process, and the end result is typically a 4 to 12 week cycle, oftentimes even longer, sometimes not even fully completed in these access reviews. So while manual might get you by, it's not helping the organization too much. Go to the next. So again, a few of those points we touched on here, it's a lot of data, especially if you are dealing with ERP application like SAP or Oracle EBS, where you're going to have thousands of roles and thousands of users, where you have to extract all this data and make sense of it. You have to create corresponding spreadsheets just to prepare to present this data to your reviewers. Now, again, with a manual process using Excel, I was putting together an Excel sheet the other day for something unrelated to this, but from copying and pasting some of the cells into a Word document, it blew my mind how many red underlines there were in there from the spell check. And that's just, that's me doing my job here of just a simple example of human error when you're using an Excel sheet. It's going to happen quite often to an organization. That's a risk you're facing when you're doing a manual process like this here. Now, distributing it all. Distribution via email. I mean, how hard is it going to be to track down the email that you may have remembered a week ago, let alone coordinating this throughout the entire organization of your reviewers, your auditors, and your IT folks here. So taking it a bit further, trying to get to some sort of level of granularity in these things is very difficult to do. If you're looking from a security perspective, this could be a data leakage risk here. Or just a review of who is accessing what. Maybe you could have one manager who'd be able to see the reviews of the access of another department here. That's kind of an area you don't really want to have going on, and sometimes it's just a risk that happens in the process. That's the manual approach of things. Now, again, the more applications you have in scope here, the more work you're trying to do, it's just adding to the workload here. And oftentimes, I mean, 2 to 3 months to complete a review for a single application. That can be a reality, especially with your more complex applications. Now, if you think you're trying to scale that out, is that scalable, or is that holding your organization back? So I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next slide. So yeah, is that all? And this is really just covering a basic review process. We go a little bit further. Folks are going to have emergency access, firefighter access, or privilege access, depending on what terminology you want to use. Typically, you're going to want to review that as well. So how are you handling that? How are you incorporating that into your review process? Now, what about any sort of unique data custom to your organization? And this is a special point here because oftentimes, your large applications, enterprise applications, will have some sort of built-in UAR capabilities. And it kind of lends to the next point here is that creating silos in your review process? Again, silos are just going to create more disconnect through the organization and will be allowing folks to basically miss risks that could possibly happen. So you bring it all together, what was 2 to 3 months may now be 4 to 5 months long. So after a handful of these painful reviews, many organizations, they just want to automate. Should they, just find some software, deploy the software, and push a magic button? Fortunately, it's not that simple. And there's going to be a variety of reasons why. One of the reasons we just touched on prior was the complexity of these applications and having to bring together some of the, built-in UAR capability. How do you incorporate that with the rest of your organization? So that's where we kind of go into the challenge of siloed UARs. Go to the next part. So if you are siloing the UARs, and what I mean by that is, look, you've got a business manager or reviewer who is going to have their employees, and they're going to have typically access to multiple applications. Now, if I am this reviewer and I'm having to review all the access for my employees, am I going to be doing this by application, or do I have a way of seeing it all in one spot? Obviously, the latter, being able to see it all in one spot, would make a lot more sense, because that way you're able to see the entirety of the access and more easily be able to identify any sort of excessive access or other risks that are going on in there. One area that I'd say is adjacent to this area is kind of cross-app SOD violations. We see that more and more now that the application landscape is more integrated. I think that a similar thing goes along here in the user access review space in terms of excessive access. More applications, more complexity, more risk to miss risks. So again, without it being centralized, having these siloed recertification campaigns, it adds to complexity of making everything really kind of chaotic to complete this stuff. Beyond just tracking down your reviewers, if say I'm the campaign manager and somebody audit, beyond being able to track down your reviewers to make sure that reviews have been completed, they're done thoroughly, they're done accurately, audit's going to want to see, a complete trail of who did what, why, the reasoning behind it all, and ideally an easily digestible format. If we're throwing 5, 6 different reviews at them, each from different applications, again, it's going to create more pain for your auditors. If there's external audit, that's going to be more cost. You're going to have to be spending on your external auditors. So a big part of all this stuff is also really kind of delay. The delay created in protracting out this process of performing reviews. We see this in other areas of a move to things like continuous control monitoring, real-time monitoring around things here. And the underlying theme really in all this technology is that we're trying to increase the period of review, increase the accuracy of the data we're reviewing from a point in time to something more real-time to reduce the risk of those dwell periods, the period between your reviews. Now, for something like access reviews, let's say that an employee does have excessive access, or even let's say that there is employees still have access to your system that was terminated. If your review period is once a year, that means you have it gone an entire year, really without identifying that risk. You're leaving your organization exposed to that. And I want to leave on that point because I think that's one of the biggest challenges here, besides the time spent, is the risk that you're leaving your organization exposed to by having these extended review periods. So go to the next one. So moving to centralized access certifications, centralizing your access reviews. What's the value behind it all? I kind of tried to boil it down into these 4 areas here. From what we're reducing, we're helping you reduce your audit and compliance costs with moving it to a centralized solution. We're helping reduce identifying the access risks by identifying and preventing these risks, bringing that risk level down. And a little bit later, we'll talk about what goes into this and some of the best practices to follow to be able to realize these deliverables. Now, obviously, if you're moving to something that was manual, any sort of automated solution is going to improve your efficiency and effectiveness. But from a cross-application perspective, especially, you're going to realize much larger benefits to all of this. From a process efficiency perspective of bringing it all together in one centralized spot, to effectiveness of being able to uncover risks that exist and more accurately, effectively perform these reviews. So at a high level, really, this is where I see the value of organizations moving to a centralized approach. I'm going to pass it off to Jasmine here to talk about some of the best practices and what organizations can do to realize these results. Jasmine,
Okay,
the floor is
thanks,
yours.
Ryan. Yes, thank you. So let's talk about ways we can expand user access reviews to support your larger application landscape. You have all these different applications that you need to start reviewing and looking at user access for. To do this, we really start reviewing user access by business functions across these applications. We should be using flexible, repeatable campaign templates and definitions. We should also be giving additional insights to the reviewers about the users and roles so that they can make a better decision on keeping the role or removing the role. We should also provide automation for the review process and follow-up actions so that it'll be a little bit easier for the reviewer to complete their actions. And in addition, we should also be looking at those cross-application risks that are now going to come into play when we're looking at access across different applications. So as we're adding these applications into your landscape, the typical reviewer, let's say your user manager, will need to start reviewing more roles for each of their employees. And in most cases, the roles to review are defined by the security models in the target applications, in your business applications. And this can often be too technical for the user manager to understand. And so maybe they are not making the right decision on if this role is required for the job functions of their employee. So we recommend this business role concept. And what a business role is really a collection of application authorizations or roles that are abstracted to make it easier for the business user or manager to understand what this access means. And it also simplifies the whole review process for the manager. So instead of reviewing, let's say, 100 technical roles across SAP, Oracle, EBS, Salesforce, SuccessFactors, maybe they're looking at one single business role to determine if that user access is appropriate or not. So access certification not only meets compliance requirements for regulations like SOX, HIPAA, GDPR, but it also gives organization a single pane of visibility into the access that users have across these different applications. It's really a single source of truth. And in addition to the results that the access certification campaign can provide, that those results can also be used to support role redesign decisions, migration activities, all to ensure that access risk is reduced or maintained and users have only the required access that is needed that aligns with their job functions. So let's talk about the certification campaigns themselves. The campaign really is a collection of all the different users and roles that need to go through the review process. And these campaigns can be segmented or scoped by different attributes. That could be role, that could be department, location, risk. So for example, you can run a campaign just to look at all users who have admin roles. Or you can focus your campaign on a specific set of users that you care about or a particular department in your organization. You can run a single campaign that covers roles in a single application, or that one campaign can cover roles across multiple applications. So this flexibility in defining the scope of the campaign allows you to review high-risk groups or roles more frequently, while the low-risk users with maybe non-critical access can be reviewed less often. Actually, let me go back up one. I also want to mention, so the user certification provides the ability to create version control campaign templates. And this is useful to be reused in scheduled campaigns that run monthly, quarterly, or annually, or whatever other period that's decided. The templates are used to provide insights as well into the review response rate trends over time, and it supports the optimization of repeatable recertification processes. The campaigns can be scheduled to be run periodically, or they can be run in an ad hoc manner, but we also have flexible workflows, which means we can support multi-stage reviews involving user managers, line managers, risk owners, role owners as part of the review workflow. And each campaign, we have the option to also define if reviewers are allowed to do a mass approval or mass revoke actions, and also control what kind of automated response are performed when review decisions are submitted. So these automated actions can include locking accounts, deprovisioning a revoked role, or if for some reason the roles were never certified by the reviewer, there could be an auto deprovision that happens when the campaign ends. So once the reviews end up in the reviewer's inbox, the user managers or role owners or risk owners, again, they have to look at a lot of roles now because they have a larger application landscape to consider. So it's helpful to have additional insights about the users and accesses. So to help the reviewers make a more informed decision about revoking or keeping a role. Now the reviewers can get provided detailed usage insights so they can easily determine whether access is necessary. So usage data is shown at the account level, at the role level, and even at the functional level, including information like last use date and the frequency of a function or activity usage. This helps reviewers identify roles that haven't been used since the last review period maybe, and so may not be required for the employee's job function. The insights can also be provided on critical access or SOD risks that occur due to these roles, and again, giving the reviewer more context to make a decision. So during a campaign, again, we have a lot of roles, a lot of applications, a lot of users to consider. Having recommended actions and automation will streamline and reduce the manual efforts required as part of this recertification process. So one way of doing this is having a one-click access revocation. So role owners, managers, or whoever's reviewing are able to remove access for a specific user with one click. So when they submit their revoke decision, the role will be auto deprovisioned from the target application. And this eliminates the need to involve IT to manually remove roles. So as Ryan mentioned earlier, user access reviews tend to take a longer time period because there are many players in here. There's the folks who have to review it. There's the folks who have to go and manually remove it from the target applications. But having this one-click access revocation can simplify the process and reduce the manual efforts required. There's also the concept of the least privileged model that we try to encourage. So as part of the access certification, there is a recommendation engine that is there to simplify the corrective actions needed to align with the least privilege. So if a reviewer decides to rectify a user's unused access, there's best fit alternatives that are recommended based on the user's functional usage over some defined period. So a replacement role will be recommended. And if a reviewer decides to select that replacement role, a process is started and a request is triggered for the compliant provisioning workflow with the appropriate stakeholders. In addition, inactive users can be automatically decertified if they have not accessed the system for a predefined period, and they can be excluded from recertification campaigns. Now, this auto lock feature is customizable based on the level of risk, and managers can still decide whether or not to include those users in the campaigns. Now, since we're doing cross-application certification campaigns, we also need to support cross-application risk analysis. And this is really the risk that exists because of users having roles assigned to them across different applications. So during the review process, both single app and cross-app risks, SOD risks, critical access risks, provide context to the reviewers to make a more informed decision, again, for all these different user roles and accesses across multiple applications in their landscape. I'll hand it back to Ryan.
Let me take myself off of mute. So thank you for that. So there's some good best practices in there and really kind of capabilities to look out for in any sort of access review solution out there. I'm sitting here on my side, as you go through this and also looking at, just kind of some of these features really, in my mind, is all tying back to it's either, cost savings, time savings, or risk reduction. And when you go into that, go into the details of everything, that's really what bringing your reviews into a centralized solution will do for you. So you guys wanted to do one more quick overview of a path lock, and then we'll get into the more exciting stuff, which make a little bit of a demo preview for you guys. So yes, what we're doing here is helping harmonize these cross-app controls. And again, this is looking at the user access risks and the application risks across all of your applications, 140 or so. Again, as you saw in some of these best practice recommendations we had here, it ties back down to getting visibility into the access, getting visibility into the usage, and then bringing automation to your controls and audit activities to help realize the benefits there. Go to the next slide real quick. So one of the things I like to highlight out of our solution, and I think I find exciting, is how we're bringing together, kind of two things here. One, deep visibility into, who has what, basically your entitlements across applications, and then combining that with who did what. So kind of the can do and the did do. In the context of user access reviews, this is going to be important because I think we've seen this plenty of times where you've got a reviewer that it might go in there, look through a list, and they're going to rubber stamp approval of this because they've got many more to do and they're just kind of overworked, overloaded by everything. But being able to see, what a user did do, what they did use out of their access, and then using that information to help prioritize, this access was used quite often, or this access wasn't used, for 6 months, and prioritize that in the presentation to your reviewer allows them to quickly identify, hey, what's necessary, what is not necessary, and identify any sort of high-risk access they want to take a closer look at. So this is one of the unique differentiators of our platform, and this touches everything across the access governance spectrum, but I think has a unique value here on the access review side of things. So Jasmine, I'm going to pull you in on this one here, and then let you have the floor again. Can you run us through a little bit from a high-level process flow of how the solution works?
Sure, thanks, Ryan. So let's take a look at how user access reviews are done in Pathlock. So what we do first is we're connecting to the business applications and the authoritative source and extracting data. From the application, we're extracting account, access, role data, and we're correlating that with the identities of real employees in the organization based on the data we're pulling from the authoritative source. The authorizations and the security model, each application is different. They can be technical roles in SAP, in Oracle EBS, it could be responsibilities, it could be entitlements somewhere else. In some legacy applications, it could be menu paths. So there's a lot of different ways access and authorizations are defined in different applications. But Pathlock will normalize that access across all the applications to either a system role, technical role, or business role so that we can run these campaigns on a common security model. So once we have that data extracted and correlated, we can define the scope of the campaign, what users, what roles need to be reviewed. And once we start that campaign, the review tasks will be routed to the reviewer's inbox. The reviewers will then perform their reviews and decide to approve or retain the access, or they can decide to reject and revoke the access, in which case the deprovisioning process or other corrective actions will be triggered. Now, once the reviews are completed, the campaign will be closed and the results are published to the auditors. And this is used typically as evidence to both internal and external auditors that the user access review control has been performed. So I'm going to actually switch over to the demo instance so we can take a look at how this works in the application itself. So I'm first going into the employee directory here. Click on that. And this is really giving a summary of the data extracted and processed from the authoritative sources and the business application. Again, we're extracting application data and correlating that with employee identities. And while we're doing that, we can also run risk analysis on the roles that have been assigned to those employees and report on those SOD risks in both single app and cross app scenarios. Now, if I scroll down here, I will see the list of all the employees I have in the system, the kind of risk they have, how many applications they have access to or accounts in. And let's click on this first one, Aaron. So here we have some of the general information about Aaron. Aaron's title, the department they're part of, full name, um, department, location, other information can also be added in here. We'll also go, if you click on this user, we'll also see the list of account IDs that are associated with this user. So we see that there are a number of accounts across different applications like PeopleSoft, Active Directory, SuccessFactors, Oracle, that have been attached and associated with this identity. So we have that information as well that's been being correlated as we extract data from these different applications and authority sources. We can also go and look at the roles that this Aaron user has in the system, and we can see the roles that have been assigned across the different applications. For example, we're showing some of the Oracle roles here. We can also go into the risk tab and see all the risks that have been associated or analyzed against this user. So we're running this risk analysis. I think in this case, we're only showing the cross-app risk analysis here. And we see that there are a few risks associated with this user, Aaron, based on the account IDs and the roles they have in these different applications. Now, if I click on this first one, we can drill down into the risk itself and get a summary of the information of how this risk, which functions are involved in defining this risk, and which combination of activities resulted in Aaron having this risk reported. So that's how we get all our employee information. And now we have all the role and user information available to us to use in our campaigns. So I'm going to go to the campaign level. And so here in the campaign view, we see all the reviews that are in progress during this time period. We see some of them are active, some of them are completed, some of them are overdue. And if I scroll down, I have a full list of all the campaigns that are happening in the system right now. And let's go and create a new campaign. Pick on a new UAR campaign. So since we have all the authorization data and user data available, we can actually slice and dice this information in different ways to define the scope of the campaign. So first, we can define what users or roles should be part of that campaign. And again, we can pick specific users, specific roles, specific departments. We can filter on a user group like a admin group, or we can filter on roles that have certain functions or activities that are of interest to us. Then we can go and define what kind of roles we want to review. Roles with risks associated with them. Do we want to look at composite roles, or do we want to look at business roles or some other parameter to be reviewed? So now that we have that user and role data defined, we can also decide which applications we want to see as part of this campaign. And this is where we have the flexibility to run this one campaign and select multiple applications, or we can select a single application per campaign. Now, if we go to the next step, here we're providing instructions to the reviewers so that when they go into their inbox in the PathLock application, they'll understand what needs to be done on their side as part of the review. And on the last step, we give some basic information for the campaign itself, like the name of the campaign process. We can also define what kind of workflow to use here. So we have a lot of flexibility in defining different types of workflows. In this case, we're using a single stage workflow where user managers will perform the review. We also have the option to run the campaign in different modes. We can run it as a scheduled campaign that happens periodically, or the campaign can run once in an ad hoc manner. Now, once we've completed all this, we can actually start the campaign. And at this point, the reviews are generated and auto-assigned to the right reviewers. So the reviewers will receive an email notification to log into the system, to the Pathlock instance, and complete the reviews that are in their inbox. So let's go to the inbox. And here we have a category called My Waiting Reviews. And that's where you'll see all the items that have to be reviewed by this user manager, risk owner, role owner, whoever the review assignee is. And now if we click on one of these reviews, we can go into the details to see all the users that are covered that need to be reviewed by this reviewer. And if we drill on any of these individual users, we'll see the list of roles that need to be reviewed. So I'm going to click on the second one to Aaron Klug and scroll down a little, and we'll see some of the roles that we have to review for Aaron. If I scroll down a little bit more, we'll see one of these reviews or roles to be reviewed is this SAP All role. So I'm going to click on this role, and I'll see a little bit more information about the usage of this role by Aaron. So we see there's quite a few activity groups or functional groups here, and only one of them had any usage by Aaron at this point. So this gives us some information how often this role is being used by Aaron. And actually, when we scroll across, we also see what kind of risks are associated with this role. Some of them are high priority, some of them are medium or low priority, but this gives us information on how important or how risky this role will be, potentially be for this user. So with this usage and role information, we can make a better decision or more informed decision about approving or rejecting the access here. So we can decide to approve this role, in which case Aaron will keep this role assigned to him, or we can decide to reject this role, in which case we can add a comment here about why we're rejecting the role or requesting that to be removed, and we can submit our decision. Now, when we submit our decision, if it is a revoke and we do have it configured in the system, Pathlock application will go and auto deprovision that role directly at the business application, for example, at the SAP system in this case, or the Pathlock system can generate a ticket in a third-party application such as ServiceNow to start the manual role removal process. So in this way, reviewers will go in, complete their items, reminders will be sent if there are pending items every few days, and if the overdue items occur, additional escalation emails will be sent out. So as a campaign manager or campaign admin, we can track the progress of the campaign, how many reviews are being completed, if they're being completed in a timely manner, or if they need to be reassigned to some other reviewer to get completed. So if we click on any of these campaigns, we can go and look at the progress of the campaign. We'll see in this case, 20% of the reviews have been completed. We can go and get a little bit more detail about what reviews were completed. We can look at the review status. And here we'll see the list of all the users that are being reviewed as part of this campaign. We could scroll down and actually drill into one of these users. I think I drilled into Al Gore here, and we see that the approvals have been done for all the different roles associated with Al Gore in this campaign. Actually, I had approved those accesses a couple of days ago. So once the reviews are completed and the campaign is closed, we can export the campaign results as a report to share with the auditors and provide as evidence of the recertification process. So that was a quick overview of the Pathlock Access Certification solution. And again, there's a lot more features here, but we did want to highlight how we can do support cross-application and expand their user access review to a larger landscape. I'll hand it back to Ryan now.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jasmine. Thank you for running through the detailed demo there. And I always love the names that we have in the demo environment. We got algorithms, user access.
Yes.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. And we're going to wrap up here, folks. So I want to just kind of give a quick overview of the entire platform we have here at Pathlock. What we reviewed today was really around user access certifications and review. This is one component of the entire platform, touching on pillars of access governance, which I know many are familiar with here, going into the process control space, and then the cybersecurity management or application security space itself. So stay tuned for future webinars, and if there's any other questions, if anything else might capture your attention here, happy to answer those questions as well. We'll go ahead and wrap up. So what I wanted to touch on, just as one of the last points here, and Jasmine, feel free to chime in if I miss anything. I like boiling it down to, you three stakeholders who this is really benefiting most. When you've got your auditors, and what a centralized solution is doing is it's providing a single source of truth, allowing them to ensure that the controls are being fully executed, nothing's being forgotten about, really, per requirements. And oftentimes being able to expand those to even more frequent periods to further help things out there. Now, on the business user side, it's, again, efficiency, effectiveness. We're helping by providing context and visibility that improves the clarity and, I like to say, the comprehension of what they're reviewing. This kind of ties back to what we had said around being able to normalize things across applications, being able to normalize it in a standardized language where things aren't getting lost in translation between IT talk or audit talk. What this does is, it helps them reduce the time spent on reviews. Now, on the IT admin side, a big part, again, time savings. By using a solution that's connected with all your systems and centralizing it, we're automating a lot of the mundane activities, such as, pulling and organizing this data, and we're getting rid of Excel sheets, helping simplify this process in a centralized solution. Great. With that, we'll move into Q&A.
Thank you so much, Jasmine and Ryan. Again, if you have any questions, please add them now into the Q&A chat box. And while we're waiting for those to show up, can we go to the next slide for announcements? Okay, so we have our Pathlock Innovation Series coming up, and in the chat, I'm going to put a link to that for registration. That's December 5th through the 8th, and we're gonna have all topics from everything from SAP to PeopleSoft to Oracle, and we're gonna have multiple other companies joining us to present. So if you would like to come to that, we encourage you to register at the link that I just put in the chat. Okay, we have a few questions that have come in. The first one is, how are the roles being removed? Are they removed through an automatic access request?
I
Sure.
can take that one, Ryan.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, they are being removed. So every time a revoke or reject decision is submitted, in the background, there is a access deprovision request that's generated by Pathlock. And based on whatever workflow is configured for that specific application, we can process that request with the zero-stage workflow, let's say, with 0 approvals, and directly deprovision or remove the role from the target application. Or the access request can be configured to trigger a ServiceNow request to, or some other ticketing system to do that role removal.
Okay, great. The next question is, how does Pathlock know the user's email addresses?
So that's coming in as part of the identity information. So as we mentioned, we're integrating with pulling data from authoritative sources. So that can be your AD system, some other IDM system that has a user first name, last name, email address, employee ID, all information we can use to correlate to the account IDs and the target applications.
Okay. And then the next question is, how different is the UAR and CAR process compared to SAP GRC access controls?
So I think the process is very similar. Some of the limitations of using the SAP GRC is you're a little limited to only SAP systems. So we have customers who are using this solution and they're covering SAP, Oracle, SuccessFactors, Salesforce, some legacy applications, some native applications as well, and covering them all within the Pathlock UAR solution.
Okay. And then the next question is, what rule set is Pathlock using for the SOD risk analysis?
So we have standard out-of-the-box rule sets that are typically used as a starting point, and each customer takes that and tailors that to their specific environment. If they have a cross-app cases that they need to consider, or if they're doing everything within a single application, that all can be customized. But we have our own standard set that we provide.
Okay. And then I think we have time for about one more question. The next question is, can this be used with cost point?
That I don't know, Ryan, if you have an answer for that.
We'll have to circle back on that one. I am not familiar with the solution. I don't know if we have a pre-built integration there, but as we expand the integrations list, that certainly could be a consideration. The way we've built our APIs and connectors out, it can be built out relatively quickly. There was one other, so whoever asked that, we'll follow up with you on that for more information here. I think there was one other good question that stuck out, and Jasmine, I'm going to throw this your way here. How different is the UAR and CAR process compared to SAP GRC access control?
I think we answered that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, I was looking up something else.
No problem. Yeah, it's very similar, but the limitation on the SAP GRCs, they're focusing on only SAP solutions, right? So you'll need additional integrations or development to support other applications. And we have over 100 connectors and integrations with different applications. So most likely you will have a integration available to do your UARs across a larger application set.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Jasmine.
Yeah, I think that is all the questions we have time for today. Hopefully we covered most of them that came in through the chat. If you have any more questions for us, you can contact us at events@pathlock.com or info@pathlock.com, and we'll also have some of our team reach out to you and be able to answer any of your questions. So we hope to see you at future webinar events, and thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Jasmine and Ryan, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.